All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 74. Last episode, Reinhard officially conquered the universe, sans that bit of Isolon and Elphasil. But the Alliance is gone. It's dead, officially.
Completely gone.
In the ground.
Yep.
And the citizens of the Alliance are kind of okay with it. Like, they're really starting to get won over by their charismatic blonde boy that is their new ruler/leader. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, he's done his part in completely solidifying, well, the fact that they will not really fight back. Like in a lot of ways, the difference within how things were done in Fejon versus the Alliance is almost negligible. It's just the fact that the different forms of government there prior and the people there and what they had experienced from their leaders. Completely different.
And
a different response.
And of course, for this one, Reinhard has many more zippy one-liners and philosophical musings and phrases that he spouts as he looks off into space through.
Right. None of that went to the Alliance, specifically.
No.
But that's just for us, But we did get to have a lot of problem people in the Alliance kind of dealt with, which was rather satisfying. Mm-hmm.
And
the news of Bukok's death, though, did reach Yang, and that was a bit of a
rattled
downer.
them. Yeah. 3 days of mourning. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're not out of the woods yet.
Y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Okay, I was wrong. It says according to the report.
Right, so
it's definitely something that...
With regards to Ruental doing something sketch or whatever.
Yeah, Ruental as a high admiral probably having done something that the Minister of Justice would need to provide a report on. Now, this might be something that was passed up the food chain because of some elements that are at the lower level, and then they get passed along, and this is why it's finally...
Is this an issue? Is this an issue? Is this an issue? Oh, yep, that's a big problem. Let's send it on. Yeah.
The issue with this, though, is that this comes off of the tip of the bit we had with Rubinsky saying that there was a member of the Fejon system that was trying to intentionally cause discord between Oberstein and Ruental so that he could profit off of it.
And that's not as crazy of an idea as people thought.
Well, yeah, it's not just a crazy idea. Mm-hmm. It's something that would be foolish to an outsider.
Right.
But to an insider, someone who might be a little bit aware of the goings-on in the Imperial military at this level, you maybe would know a little bit about the idea that Ruental has a couple issues in the midst of things there.
Hence things like when Mittermeier's second in command, made sure that their fleet was in a certain position when Ruental was doing something, and Ruental picks up on it and is kind of like, okay.
Well played,
Yeah.
So this is cool because this could be, for the most part, fabricated. This could be something that
with
is...
with little kernels of truth.
Right. With little kernels of truth that give Reinhard and his, I would say, budding paranoia a little bit of pause here. Now, what's brilliant about this is that Oberstein already doesn't really like Ruental.
Of course not.
We had that little spat with the three, upper fleet admiral guys all kind of having their
talk.
And then Reinhard stepping in and being like, "Okay, boys,
here's what we're doing.
This is what we're doing."
Yeah.
This is exciting too because development on Ruental's side of things means that Mittermeier will eventually get involved, and he'll be pulled at from both sides. Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about it is that this is kind of coming at the worst time, because Ruental has had his ambitions, right? With the Battle of Vermilion, he's like, okay, I'll just be slow coming back, right?
A little bit, yeah.
But now he's kind of, the vibe that I've gotten is that he's kind of been persuaded against that.
I think so,
because he's like,
he's enamored by how much his idol has done.
Right, he's like, I don't
I can't stop you now.
I don't want to get in the way of this.
Well, right. He has said many times that if like Reinhard kept showing that glaring weakness, then he would have no choice but to do something about it.
Right.
But when on the the inverse side of things, if Reinhard is showing all this strength, then it's
him.
I'm gonna follow you. Yeah, this is
right.
Why wouldn't I?
It's the whole thing that Reinhard said to him up frontly of, hey, if/when you think that you can do a better job than me,
right.
then I welcome the challenge,
exactly.
but I will crush you if when you do, right?
Right.
So okay.
So Ruenthal's like, okay, then I will not challenge you.
Yep, you're doing a good job.
Now, this is exciting because there's another character who has notoriously had this kind of shit thrown at him and had to basically ultra instinct his way through it constantly through the show, and that's Yang.
Right.
Yang is basically the equivalent character to a Ruenthal in a way that is he's the number one child of this great movement, and yet
all the people above him were incompetent and awful and all that stuff.
But in this case, Ruenthal has the benefit of being in an extremely competent environment,
right,
where even his peers in some ways can be more competent than him.
Yeah.
Like Oberstein himself is like a very clear intellectual rival. Mariendorf is a
fantastic
genius,
and Mittermeier's
a good boy.
Like he has no bad stats, other than maybe
he's well rounded.
Yeah, he's very well rounded.
Right. Ruenthal is a bit skewed in some direction.
Right. Mental stability and things like that. It takes
love life.
Right. Exactly. It takes a certain kind to be like hell yeah. About that stuff.
Exactly. But Reinhard is responding quickly, and he is sending Mueller, not Mittermeier, like you were saying, probably because of the relationship connection they have between the two, and also probably because Mueller has just been one of the most doggedly loyal.
Oh yeah,
and
you don't get the name Iron Shield Mueller for being untrustworthy.
He's thrown his life on the line for Reinhard so many times that it's ridiculous. So exciting developments there. But this episode, y'all, we had multiple really, really good, in-depth, complex conversations between characters that we had just been waiting to have these kinds of conversations with. One, now that Julian is with Yang and Frederica, they can actually all just sit down and talk at the table, which was wonderful.
That conversation and the way that Yang was so unsure of himself in so many of the regards, but it was wonderful to see because Yang is a brilliant character, right? He's a brilliant person and he's a brilliant character, right? Those are two separate things. He's very smart as a person, but then he's also just
really well
brilliantly written, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Regardless of his intelligence as a person, he's a wonderful character, right?
Yeah.
And seeing him grapple and wrestle with these things was excellent because he has these lofty ideals that are so lofty, a lot of the people underneath him don't even believe in them to the degree he does, right? Shonkov is just take direct dictatorial authority, dude. You'd be great at it,
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't want to. But then at the same time, by being true to my own ideals, have I let down the people around me that were fighting with me to defeat Reinhard and stuff when I didn't kill him? Would it be better if he actually ran everything? is it worth opposing him at this point? Just all sorts of concerns, and he's not sure. And with as Hand of Midas, Yang's journey has been.
Yeah.
Where just everything he touches turns to gold, right? Very similar to Reinhardt's situation. Previously, when Reinhardt had Kierheis. Reinhardt's biggest flaw now is that he doesn't really question himself the way that he should, right? And that's why Mariendorf is so important.
Well, also, everything's gold, so he doesn't need to put his hands in everything anymore.
Yes, that too. But so then the fact that Yang here is questioning everything, I love it, because it's showing that if/when Yang goes farther than Reinhardt does, however that ends up happening, if it does happen, this will be why, right? Because it's that parallel and contrast to the conversation that Reinhardt had with Ruenthal and Mariendorf with regards to the whole deal with Iserlohn.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
and I want to go back into that conversation a lot as well. But let's like briefly go through the episode because we had a couple big decisions being made as well. Reinhardt is not going to go to Iserlohn, not just because of the document that came at the end, but also because of the convincing arguments that came from his staff. And notably, like all of them were doing a really good job of providing really sound arguments as to why he should not just give the duty to his fleet admirals.
His twin stars,
Yes, twin stars. They're amazing.
Yep.
But also, you need to go back to Fejon because there's some problems that could potentially be there if you are not there when you just moved your entire empire's seat of power to this place.
Right, make sure it's solid. Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't dug roots down there yet. I love the fact that Mariendorf keeps bringing up the idea of longevity with regards to this empire because, looking back on how she joined into all this, she was very much almost a Fejon-esque opportunist.
Ah, sure.
In that she saw the way history was moving and who was doing the moving of it and was like, I'm jumping on that ship. That's a great ship right there. But she has had to help rudder him in directions, steer him in ways to where he's not, he's headed off towards the shoals of the rocks, and she's just like, hey.
Yep.
We don't need to beach the ship yet. We are doing a great job on the high seas right now.
Exactly. And it is a thing to behold, and Reinhardt, you have been wise to acknowledge this.
Yes.
Anytime you have Ruental and Mariendorf saying the same thing, agreeing, take that as the word of God. Yeah. Because those two are very, very different people.
Very different people.
About as different as you can get.
Yeah.
And if they are saying, no, this is the course of action we need to take, yeah.
If you want that triple confirmation, just call Oberstein, and he'll be like, well, of course you
He's like, of course that's what you need to do. Wait, who suggested this? Well, Ruental brought it up first. Damn it.
Well, yeah. My advisors, Ruental and Mariendorf, are suggesting this. The both of them. Do it.
Yeah.
Man.
Why are you calling me?
Why are you calling me?
Yeah. I appreciate the consideration, but yeah.
Right. Then on the just light side of things with Kateros von Kreutzer.
Ah, yes, that's
and
conversation.
Schonkopf.
Yeah.
And Poplin.
Yeah. What was Poplin on this episode?
He just went full okay. He's like, I know I've probably sired about 100 bastards at this point. Probably. But that all being said, I don't have the pleasure, the joy, the privilege of having one of them already being a growing, young lady right nearby that I can at the very least help in the slightest little bit. Not as some very doting perfect father or anything like that, but just in the slightest little bit helping her understand what it is to express your emotions, figure out how to communicate with people, because she's going through a lot of confusing stuff right now with the fact that she very much probably wants your love and wants a little bit of, interaction with you beyond just the military aspects there. But you're you, Schonkopf, so...
Right.
Yeah.
And then he goes to her and he's like, hey, he's going to die 20 years sooner than you. Do you really want to make up with a gravestone?
Yep.
I want a meme of
my God.
Poplin with his hair super long and going straight into the sky and him saying, I'll need all the wisdom I'll ever have. This was so surprising. The fact that, I can't remember if it was Schonkopf or someone else, saying someone take the date, stop the presses, build a memorial because today Poplin has said something that is wise beyond his years. What is even happening?
The sad part was when he invoked Ivan Konev's name, just to be it's almost a betrayal,
Yeah, he stabbed me in the back. I thought we'd always be together, and then he went and died.
Yeah.
And it's and that oh man, thank you for bringing that up because that I feel like is the thing that makes me believe that Poplin would actually say these things, right? Because most of the time with the kind of person Poplin is, he takes life as one big joke and one party.
Super
cavalier, right?
Yeah.
Expialidocious, all of that, right? So the fact that he actually says this, it's like, where's this coming from?
But then making me laugh. Well, keep going. No, it's just.
But then he says the whole thing about his buddy, and it's like, yeah, that's right. He's gone. Like, for the longest time, we've been watching this show for 74 episodes now. They were like this, always there, right?
And he promised me he wouldn't die when he got killed.
Yep.
I'm not even going to laugh at that.
He stabbed me in the back. Yeah, no, I know.
I'm not even going to laugh at that.
Well, because Poplin believed it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I love the way that Poplin kind of has to talk about this, because he starts off using a metaphor or a comparison with Julian, which was hilarious because we're like, you're still trying. And she's like, what the hell? Why are you bringing Julian?
And then he's
Lieutenant Commander, whatever. And he's like, no,
pivot.
fine.
All right, fine. Yeah.
Fine, I'll use Shunkov. And then when he starts talking about Shunkov, he's like, wait, why the hell am I defending? Whatever, I'll use me. And then he switches to himself. And that's when you know things got vulnerable there, because he usually does kind of deflect a little bit off of himself so that things don't get that vulnerable. But the fact that he brought up Ivan Konev is like, that hurts, because you see very much that this is a guy who's had to say goodbye to a lot of people, but there was one that he thought would always be there.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't take that luxury. And I really, really think this is the brilliance. Don't you take that
luxury too.
Right. I really think this is the brilliance of the writing in general, in that there are characters that I believe really strongly that many of the cast are kind of taking for granted that they'll always be there. Reinhardt is a great example of this. We have talked many times about how we've just kind of more like tried to design in our minds what would be the best way for Reinhardt to die, because he has to die at some point. He's Alexander the Great, basically. But that's the thing, is that there are so many other people that are not the greatest, golden,
Kierheis,
son, Kierheis, exactly.
Like that was the story of his life. And
changed everything.
Right, the fate of the galaxy is being shifted as a result of the fact that there was this one person that, somebody was sure wouldn't die.
Yeah.
He'd be there with them through it all. Guess what? This world is cruel.
Yep. I just love it as well, because it brings it all the way into the conversation they had about autocracy versus democracy. And just basically the power of an individual.
Yeah.
And how it ends up getting measured through history, because one person can end up being a shaper and mover of history. And also they can end up getting swept along in history and causing ripple effects that are felt way later. So this is just a really, really good episode with all the stuff we end up getting here.
And the whole bit where Yang's talking about how, no. Well, so, okay, the military in a democratic situation, a lot of times the military has to, democracy is taken at the end of a barrel of a gun, but at the same time, that's not what, you can't just rely on military force in order to keep it. Power should be kept low and all that. And
I totally want to go into that as well. But let's
workers' rights and nothing more.
Yeah, let's go through everything else first, because that's where we're going to probably spend the rest of the discussion, just going in depth into that. The disc finally gets investigated, and so it's pretty simple. The Church of Terra funded the creation of Fejon,
and it's something that feels almost like that doesn't really come as a surprise.
Yeah,
right?
It's not a surprise at all.
Right.
We in some ways didn't think about it from the standpoint of the people, whatever, being created in that way. But
we knew that they were in bed together and it ran deep.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that it ran very deep at the core of Fejon. However, the idea that Rubinsky specifically was going to betray the Church of Terra brings about the notion that Rubinsky's rise again isn't going to be with the Church of Terra. It's going to be his own thing. Yep. So now we have two tiny factions on Fejon that are going to be a problem for the galaxy at large. And which of them will ally with other big powers in the galaxy? Which of them will be antagonistic towards the larger galactic powers?
And given the fact that group might be making its move now, given the bit we got with Rubinsky talking about the whole idea of sowing discord and stuff, and I'm not talking about the server program, and now we have this news coming in at the end of the episode of, hey, disturbing report from Fejon, you know, and it's like, okay, that's the capital now, so it might just be from, you know, Imperial stuff, but it might be seeded by Fejon, you know, people in Church of Terra, machinations and stuff, and this empire might be about to go into a potential civil war.
Yeah.
Depending on how things go, because Ruenthal's high up there.
Yeah. Okay, so he's going around and targeting specific people. That's what he's doing to basically make sure that those who are not going to be helpful in his next rise here be removed from the ways of things here. So the next target that he's going after is this character here.
Lang.
Well, hold on. So she mentions like that man Lang is basically saying that there was someone who wanted to believe the rumor spread around. Now that I'm done with Odets, I should hurry up and be rid of him. So yeah, Lang is the next target.
Right, which
and
is
I believe
the
Lang
secret
is the
police
secret
guy.
police guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Lang is the one that was very much trying to push Ruenthal and Oberstein against each other. He was at that meeting with the fleet admirals, and he got yelled at to get out by Ruenthal.
Silence, you wretch!
Yeah, that was just
excellent.
Wonderful.
Absolutely excellent.
Heinrich Lang, I believe, is his name. I'm trying to find him here. Here he is. Yeah, Heydrich Lang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chief of Internal Security Department. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Former head of the secret police. So he's greedy and wants to basically get a bit of a...
Get ambition and all that, yeah.
Well, right. But he wants to ascend based on the conflict between the two. He hopes to gain a windfall profit from their competition, become the most important vassal in the empire.
Right, because the big thing that Reinhard has been doing a really good job of in differentiating himself from Goldenbaum is that Goldenbaum got paranoid, right? And that's an issue, because then if you don't trust the people under you, as good of a leader as you were in getting to this place, you are also the sum of the people under you.
Yeah.
So
that's my fundamental problem with Reinhard's rule, is that in his autocratic regime, then he needs to go all the way with it and constantly build up those with merit, those with the capacity to lead.
Right, turn it into a meritocracy, basically.
Right.
Basically.
So that means then that any type of incompetence or lack of merit in his, structure needs to be removed. But we have seen that often he is the victim of his own lack of self-awareness to be able to see when those with extreme merit, sometimes more merit than even he has to comment on certain things, gets shafted.
In a lot of ways, he is not or at least in certain areas for sure, he is not the most competent person in the Empire right now. And that's the thing that he has to understand, because while you can be the Golden God as far as the conquering of the universe goes, when it comes to actually ruling, you need to understand that there are people that are better at certain things than you are, and to listen to them.
Right.
Delegate and let them do their jobs.
Right. Which means you need to get out of the way.
Exactly. And that's something that hurts Reinhardt's pride, which is why it's very hard for him to do it. And then it takes things like Ruenthal and Mariendorf both agreeing,
But the tricky thing with this, and this is why I very much see the demise of Reinhard as a character, is that he needs to then avoid the issue of corruption and
Lang is a great example of that.
Well, right, but characters basically getting to the point where they really should be the ones ruling instead of you, Reinhard.
Oh,
because you can be a symbol, but a symbol ultimately doesn't care really who you are. Like, you can have more opportunities to reinforce that symbol if you're a wonderful, crazy, amazing person like you are, Reinhard. But that's why you need to have a co-pilot. That's why you need to father some kids. That's why you need to start passing on what you have learned. Start writing your book. Start thinking about longevity in the future.
The fact that Reinhard is so intimately aware of the loss of Kierheis, and that's why he carries the hair, in the pendant around his neck and everything. That is, it is so beautifully tragic that he then doesn't realize, while Kierheis on a on an actual level cannot be replaced.
Right, because he was so important to me.
Because he was so important to me and everything,
Right.
and he was an individual. You cannot truly replace an individual, right?
Right.
I do need to replace him because there is a void that has not been filled,
Yeah,
right?
and
so far, Mariendorf has been covering for that and
Right.
like has the duct tape and glue and stuff.
But to everyone else, Reinhard, you are their Kirchheis. So you need to think about that perspective as well. Is that what happens?
Never thought about it like that.
What happens to them when they lose you?
Right. Yeah. Then
Have you thought about that?
yeah, it's a cold, dark world out there. Space is scary, and if suddenly it's going from being like, oh yeah, this is great to hold on.
Yeah. This is why I love what Reinhard brings as a character, and yet his policies with regards to how he kind of focuses almost entirely on how powerful his inspiring light as a symbol is to his people, without thinking about the fact that a flame ultimately just is meant to burn out. That is the point of a flame, is that it will burn bright and create so much light. But yeah, what are you feeding off of? Well, if it's just yourself, you will burn away and die into a withered husk.
Get a therapist, and see them once a week, and I know you're.
Men will literally conquer the universe before going to therapy.
And he's under 25 and everything. It's perfect, right? Like
wait, no. Is he under 25?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. He was like 21, 22
we've done
or something.
a bunch of year time skips.
We've done like a year time skip.
No.
Since he since the alliance since the empire was like fully taken over.
Has it only been? No.
It hasn't been much time at all.
It's
dude.
been more than that, though.
Like,
I think if anything, he's like basically probably around 25. But
I think he's like 23 or something.
That would be crazy.
Well, that's the thing,
so crazy.
And that's the thing to remember, Reinhard, is that you are brilliant and you are amazing, but you are still very young. So be aware that there will be complications as a result of that.
Yeah. But then we get into the cream of the crop of conversations for this episode. So, all in all, this episode is bringing up many different ways of looking at the power of these individuals and their effects on history and the galaxy at large. And that's just one of the themes of the story in general.
Yep.
But Yang brings up the idea of, well, okay, we have to worry about the flow of history here because ultimately our lives don't really mean that much, given where we are right now. So, the Church of Terra is a thing, and I
love that line of it cannot turn back history, but it can cause it to stagnate.
Yeah, that was him talking about the idea of terrorism and conspiracies. Basically looking at the Church of Terra and going, okay, let's think macro here. And this is...
What's the most they can do?
Right. I love when Yang does this.
Oh, yeah.
Yang's ability to basically leave his body and go, okay, we need to think macro here. What can the Church of Terra do? What they can do is they can cause everything to just go back to some kind of dark age equivalent where things stagnate, development and society
Reinhardt's new glorious empire falls apart, maybe.
Well, no, because I think that's the difference here. Is he's not talking about the reversing of the flow of history. He's not talking about the crumbling of the empire. He's talking about what Reinhardt is bringing as terms of growth and change will just stop. Which is literally what happens at the end of the episode when the 20 million boots are halted. Yeah. That's the simple little foreshadowing bit there.
Right.
So they can't reverse the flow, but they can muddy the waters.
Yeah.
Get it stagnated. And stagnating is such a great word.
Oh, right.
Because get you feeling that it's this muck and mire.
Because it's the idea that from the perspective for Rubinsky and for the people that are doing things like this, it is definitely in their own best interests, right? But as far as the, if you were to go on a more humanitarian perspective, I guess, or historical perspective, it ceases the flow of mankind, right? It's the one person that holds up the line,
Okay.
But.
But I love that Yang goes, but we don't have time for any of that. Right. The threat of Kaiser Reinhardt is drawing close. We have to figure out what we're going to do about that. And we have a little bit of a fun disassembling of what we're fighting against, what we're fighting for,
Right.
and
because
Yeah.
the whole thing about autocracy is the most effective structure with which to carry out drastic changes. It's like, yes, that's just straight up true. If you go into any kind of like business organization or something like that, you can always break down the components into there's the one person at who will be at the top of something and autocratically manages this thing, and then they might answer to other people for what
they
do
usually
there,
have probably
right?
a board or a group of people that will be there.
Be like, give us your reports, kind of a thing, right?
And it's usually that that group of people chose a representative amongst them to
Exactly.
basically be the final word.
Right, the Minister of Justice,
exactly.
like we got at the end with the missive to Reinhard,
Right.
because things that are run democratically tend to be
Slow.
a mess and slow.
They
Yes,
tend to be slow.
Right.
This is the thing that is really, really fascinating about just kind of measuring the two of these systems here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Reinhardt ends up being given the first and final word a lot of the time.
Sure.
Basically in his system here.
Yeah.
But Yang in his kind of system here basically ends up being just one of them with the final word of basically, okay, now that we've weighed all the options here and spent probably a lot of time deliberating,
Right.
which I had to have happen in order to basically run things, even though he's in a military where he has the highest rank, so he kind of just
Totally.
makes the first and final word anyway right now. Because we don't really have an official government for
Right.
his group here. They're
but
just
everyone chooses to follow him.
right. Now there is a military rank
Oh,
and stuff like
yeah,
that there.
totally.
But that is not being managed by any kind of government right now. So it is kind of funny that Yang's talking about it from this manner
Yeah.
here, because El Facil really doesn't have
Right.
managerial
Yeah, if you
prerogative over them or something.
No, and when it comes to Iserlon, there are a hell of a lot of civilians on Iserlon. Like, we know about this, right? There was that whole wonderful scene when, I can't remember who it was that, infiltrated Iserlon, and the guy slides down, and there's the lady there, and she's all like, oh, where'd you come from,
Yeah.
So, Yang is kind of he's like a mini Reinhardt right now.
Already.
He
He might not realize it.
He might not realize it, and he's not doing anything to truly say, it doesn't matter what you think.
He's
kind
not
of
really using that power.
Right, exactly. It's all right, we're all on here, right? The people who live on Iserlon are just like, I hope that the wars and stuff that come here are as,
Right.
They're
They're on a stranded island, basically, in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
There's not really much choice as to how it gets run other than, well, who's calling the shots. And funny enough, that's where we're at.
It's one person.
Yeah. But then he brings up this really interesting thing about how people who are disillusioned with regards to democracy will say things like, well, let's give power to a great politician and have them spearhead revolutionary changes.
Yep.
And that'll make things a lot better, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Surprisingly enough, actually, I wonder if the masses have always wanted a dictator. And they might just be getting a dictator of the very best kind right now. Yeah. Because they got the lucky straw after 500 years, right? 500 years ago, we got Golden Bomb, right? That didn't go very well. It still could go the Golden Bomb route, possibly. But so far, seems to not be that. So Reinhard really is the diamond in the rough kind of a thing.
Yep.
There's a reason why this show is taking place now, why Reinhard and Yang are, this is the
main
legend of the
characters,
galactic heroes, right?
Right.
But he's like, but Reinhardt's one man. That can't last forever.
Yep. Yep.
But, yeah.
And he is shaping history, and to everyone else, he is a golden idol. And
Right.
democracy.
It's a faded bronze one.
Like a faded bronze one in that regard.
And I love it because
Yeah.
he's, in both instances, they're idols. They're fake. They're things that people will worship because they look pretty, right? Because it's,
Yeah. Now, this is one of the parts where I love how Yang is self-aware. This is a part that I think is where Reinhard and him are different. Yang is a little bit more self-aware of some of the fallacies of his own beliefs and thinking.
Questions himself way more than Reinhardt.
Yeah, except for areas with regards to maybe how he takes care of himself. Just kind of
sleep schedules,
drinking, schedule, just
tea,
having, just a little bit more.
He is much more
lazy.
Much more lazy, and he has an understanding of the uses of vices. Well, whereas I feel like Reinhardt doesn't.
Reinhardt's like, I am a god, I am above vices.
Right. Whereas Yang's like, no, yes,
give me my pension.
Julian, honey, do that thing you do that makes me feel so good. Thank you.
Yeah, there's this aspect of Yang that I say is way more relatable than Reinhardt.
Totally.
But I think that is the point that is also kind of beautifully different about Reinhardt and Yang, is that while Reinhardt is ambitious, Yang is scared of ambition.
Right.
Yang is lazy.
He's seeing what it does to people.
Yeah, exactly. Yang is lazy in that regard, and yet Yang keeps winning. So in some ways, he is being pushed to have ambition by people like Shunkov.
Right.
And he keeps bringing up how his own belief systems usually start because of ambitious revolutionaries who basically say, no, we all want to be represented. Mm-hmm. So how do we get that representation? Well, we kind of have to make drastic changes. Mm-hmm. So in order to make drastic changes, you go into the autocracy maybe a little bit. You dabble in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To shift things so that you can get democracy, and then you can take away all that individual ambition.
And
that then would lead towards drastic changes so that people can all sit at the table of, this wonderful democratic republic thing. But
and that is one of the things.
That's a cycle.
And that's something that I appreciate that Yang, like, and it's such a detail thing. Like, I know Yang knows this stuff, right? But the idea that it's not just democracy, it's democratic republic, right? It's the democracy with rules, right? Where because it's not just mob rule, right? Any old revolution with Molotov cocktails and guns and stuff can be democratic, right? Most of the people are wanting to do this one thing, and there you go, stuff happens.
Yeah, but that's the point, is that it usually, when it's in the revolutionary period, there's nothing republic about it.
No, exactly.
It's entirely a democratic thing because we need the masses to actually rise up and make something happen.
Right. Yeah.
There's more of us.
That point where the best solution is put aside for the dirty solution because it will actually make something happen now.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the idea of, okay, then once we do that, why would we then give up all that, all that effective changing power for tying down those people with guns, for instance, like the military, who then made all this stuff happen so that everyone could have a, democratic rule. It's a fun thing
it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher because for Yang here, he's in the military. Like, he chose the military in a lot of ways. Well,
I mean,
they kind of encouraged him in that because of the propaganda.
That was the only way he could study history, get the funding or scholarship or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's kind of been roped into this thing that he hates,
Yeah.
because of that. But I love this bit that he says here. It says, but while military power may give birth to a democratic government, that accomplishment isn't allowed to be boasted.
Right.
So just because you did it that way, that's not some.
And it's not an unfair thing to say that they can't boast about it, right? Because the true meaning of democracy is for those with power to exercise self-control.
Right.
Holy shit.
That's the literal opposite of everything that Reinhardt has, basically, there. Is that he is taking his arms, spreading them wide, and resting the galaxy.
And that's why in the
There's
truly
no self-control there at all.
Right. So in the truly ideal autocratic system, it would be something where when that diamond in the rough appears, they do what they do their thing.
They autocratically remove him.
Well, right.
With basically a thing of, you have now served your bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You will now be removed so that a new one that we
if Reinhardt
maybe submit to you can take his place.
And that's one of the things of why Yang was so confused before, when Reinhardt autocratically took over and then started autocratically giving power back to the people, because previously it had been nobility, right?
Yeah.
The best thing that Reinhardt could do, really, isn't even to have an heir. Maybe have an heir to make sure that it is done consistently and evenly, and there's no tensions that rise or things like that.
But to design a system of replacement?
Yes. Of replacing him as a person with a group. Because then, maybe if there's a system that can replace him as an individual... A system can
be manipulated by people.
A system can totally be manipulated by people, but it's slower. So it'll take longer for it to get manipulated and corrupted by people than if you just have, maybe not Reinhardt's son, but the son of his son, right? His grandson suddenly doesn't know about all the things that happened before, what it took to get here, and then all of a sudden knows nothing but,
The fancy thing about all of this, I just love that this comes back to it, is that Reinhardt might even just be terrified of any kind of replacement because it reminds him so much of the nobility. The reasons by which someone would actually get replaced by him is either bloodline, which is just nobility. There's no merit reason to it.
Or by competence, which oftentimes is done through dramatic and violent upheaval.
Well, not even that. If we just go at the peaceful route side of things, it then just becomes based on the who likes who, what kind of decision thing there, and then it becomes a kind of a corrupt popularity contest.
Right. It becomes a different kind of nobility, and hopefully you could keep it focused on the idea of it being being meritocracy, but
and I love that. He brings up what democracy is in its best form, is that it's the self-restraint of the powerful, codified in law and systemized in its institutions. And it's the military that needs to have that restraint most of all.
Right, because they have the most power.
Right, which is antithetical to the idea of, sometimes what the military needs is basically a little bit more freedom with able to act, but that's the biggest point.
The biggest thing that was keeping Yang from doing his job when he was in that position of power in the military was the frickin' politicians, right? It was the alliance. It was the fact
they were corrupt assholes.
Right, they were corrupt assholes.
Have any actual like shred of like care for the government that they supported, really.
Right.
Other than the way it benefited them.
And that's an example of why that restraint for the military and things like that is very hard to maintain.
Yeah. The most the military should
is the
pensions and paid leave, the rights of workers.
Yep,
it's nothing more than that.
Oh my God, the military union, like.
Yeah. And I like that Julian then brings up, it's like, but I wanted you to act, with your personal self-interest in mind. He's like, I know you'd scold me for that. He's like, as a place for immense talent to act freely, an autocracy is better suited than a democracy.
And you were a person of immense talent. And then he makes the comparison between him and Reinhardt.
Right, saying that if you guys had switched places, you guys would have each taken each other's spots, which is a baseless assumption in many ways. But it is not entirely baseless.
Right.
The reason for it is that they are both people of immense talent. But the thing is that the flow of history and all that...
Who could know what would have happened?
There is zero way of being certain. There is zero way of being certain.
In a lot of ways that... and of course, Julian doesn't know this, but the very reason that Reinhardt became the man on a mission that he was because of what happened to his sister.
Yeah.
Which probably wouldn't have happened.
Would not have happened in the alliance.
There might have been something similar along those lines that would happen, but it would have been different, right?
Right. I just love when people make these comparisons, because what it shows sometimes is how much it pays to be a student of history, because you see how simple little interactions with individuals change the course of everything. And the narrator has been giving us this wonderful perspective on this by saying,
this will be important.
This little thing here would change the course of history.
The fact that it took them this long to look at the data disk, Yang would later realize was a big mistake.
Yeah, that one guy on that asteroid supply base ended up changing the course of history
by not
forever.
Fighting. Yeah, it let them get back, those 2 hours earlier or whatever, which meant that Reinhardt didn't die. Yeah.
Right. So this story is getting peeled apart again in a really fun way here by saying that it is the Legend of the Galactic Heroes, plural.
Exactly.
Reinhard is not the only galactic hero here with his golden god, persona.
And Yang isn't either.
And Yang isn't either.
The OP showed, like, if you remember that first OP, it showed a lot of people.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
And, yeah, the setting in which they are in, the people that they interact with, the families that they were born into, all of that changes everything. So the simple, what if we just switched things around, things a bit, no.
Maybe that would have happened, but we're in this timeline.
Yeah. It's something worth maybe considering for just a bit of speculation. But it is really impressive to see where Yang is right now. And this is why I wanted to draw this just conversation out as much as possible, is that Yang is still in the place where he is right now because he never took that power.
Right.
He never Caesared, basically. He never went to that point. And he is put into a position now where it is basically just him and his subordinates.
And that makes him perfect for the job. Because he is actually the kind of person, like Reinhard, I don't know if he would. Maybe with some convincing, he'd give up power, turn it back over to the people or whatever, like in truth, as his way to leave the spotlight.
Right.
But Yang definitely would. But the thing is that because that's the kind of person he is going to do everything he can to keep himself out of that position.
Right. And yet he's in that position right now.
Yeah.
So Yang has to wrestle with this in some ways right now, or maybe a few days ago, because very soon it's going to come to the point where he will have to treat this space that they're in as a body of people, a place that needs government.
Whether Alpha Seal is included in that or not.
Alpha Seal is included in that or not.
You're still governing, at least a couple million people on Iserlohn.
In the actual fortress. So I love that his laziness could get called into account here because he might be passing that off for now.
Right.
Because, he doesn't need to think about it really.
And quite frankly, Yang, passing the buck and choosing to do nothing, choosing to wait and be patient and stuff, that is a decision in and of itself. And it has served you very well in the past. But there will probably come a point where that's going to be the wrong call. Yeah. So.
Yeah. This bit, just him thinking back on some of his past mistakes and things like this. Well, how they could be seen as mistakes and how from different perspectives the history of it will be. Like how will these events be interpreted based on who's doing the writing at that point?
I served my country and I served my own ideals when I didn't kill Reinhard, but I probably wasn't serving the people that served under me.
Right. And I just love him just being like, I'm
always like this. Yeah.
And this is good.
He doesn't know what to do.
Right. And I love this because he feels so much like a human being, but also I'm just reminded of how many great, wonderful people are around Yang to be able to help him through this stuff. He has a wonderful wife.
Yes.
Reinhard.
Yep.
And then
sure would be nice if you had, some people around you, Reinhard.
Who were, connected to you beyond just the
professional
side. Exactly. But I'm disgustingly without progress.
It's
I'm like, buddy,
you shut the fuck up.
You have made so much progress.
This is like the friend that's like, I'm terrible or whatever, and it's like, you shut your insert
you
4-letter words
pie hole there.
Right, exactly, your mouth. That's
You've done so good.
Right.
The fact that you're still like floating and swimming, that's incredible.
Yeah. They don't call you Miracle Yang for no reason.
And also, what do you think the people around you have made because of what you've done?
They made
progress.
Oh, yeah.
Well, right. But
that too.
The idea of Yang's laziness and his patience and I would say almost his reverence for power versus Reinhard's ambition,
sort of
his
brash
greed,
nature, and
then also his I don't know what it would be, more the human side of things.
Lust for life?
No. I think there's maybe something there with regards to his call it like pride, but it's his, because it's not his ambition, but it's
ego.
No, because it's something about the way he actually desires to change things.
Yes, that Reinhardt has his own set of ideals that aren't as easy to see as Yang's because they don't cause him as much trouble, right? He's able to act within the bounds of them in stride a lot easier, right? Yang's ideals are constantly causing him trouble. He's constantly grappling with them, wrestling with them. Reinhardt's been very in tune with his ideals, really up until the point where Kirheis died. And that's the point where he lost sight of them, right? Because it was originally all for his sister. That's why he was doing this. He doesn't even talk to his sister anymore. He hasn't seen her in how long, right?
Right.
So why is he doing this, right? Now it's starting to become empty. It's starting to become
conviction. That's what he had.
Right.
That's the difference. That's in some ways the difference between him and Yang is
And he's trying to stew up conviction. He knows that is the person that he is, so it doesn't feel right when he doesn't have it, and as a result of that, it turns into arrogance and overconfidence, right? Right. And he's learning humility right now and learning to actually take advice from the people around him. But what he really needs to do is get back to the golden circle and get back to the why of the situation so that he can have conviction. Because if he has that, then at most he'll need someone to basically ask some precise questions to make sure that he's has the why in his main point of focus.
Hey, he's got people for that in spades.
But he doesn't have that why right now. And again, getting married might help with that. If you actually start to make a family, then even if your relationship with your sister isn't great, the idea that you're actually doing all these things in the galaxy because you're thinking of your kids and your wife and the future that you want them to have, that'll do, pig. That'll do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. But they're assessing the strategic and tactical sides of things with what will come about while they're in the Iserlong corridor. But, okay.
What is this report? Yeah.
Which is from Brookdorf.
Who I believe is a new character.
Yes. But I found him in our notes here. He was the newly appointed Minister of Justice recently, and he helped expose Lady Binamunda's kidnapping Anna Rose back in episode 11.
Oh, okay.
So
all right, cool.
He's a legit
Right. Reinhardt appointed him
guy.
Minister of Justice for a reason. Yeah,
exactly.
So hopefully he hasn't been gotten to by Fejon, and if this is a Fejonese scheme or a Rubinsky scheme.
Well, it doesn't have to be anything involving him negatively. All it has to be is that Lang submits a report that has some things about it that are slightly twisted truths.
Right. Well, because there's enough truth to it that they would uncover something if that happened. But hopefully, if Reinhardt actually found out about that, he might be like, okay, going slow to come back to the Battle for Vermilion. That's a problem. But we've had this conversation before, Ruental. We have an understanding.
Yeah.
Is that where you're at right now? I don't think so. No. Yeah, it's like, is it? No, sir. No, mein Kaiser. Didn't think so. All right.
Yeah.
We're done here.
I would love to have this be something where it's brought up, it halts things for a bit, Ruental gets seriously investigated. And I mean deep investigation.
And Oberstein has a field day.
Oberstein just goes nuts. But also, I would say really takes this objectively and seriously and traces it all the way back to Lang.
Oh, yeah, that would be
And
great.
just has his moment of like, well, now, it seems that turns have tables.
Right. Lang's all like, oh, yes, practically like masturbating, just like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to get so much power as a result of this. And then his door gets kicked down. And
just like 6 different, armed.
Yeah. And then,
all right, we're taking you away.
Right. Kessler walks in and he's just like, oh.
Shit.
Well, the boss is gone now.
Yeah. And this might be something that's intentionally orchestrated by Rubinsky to make it be a very obvious, like, oh, you thought this would work, Lang? No. I gave you a target so that you would go towards it and it would just accelerate your own demise.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping.
I can start pushing for my own thing in Fejon.
And that's what I'm hoping, is that Lang will get discovered, and then through that, Reinhardt will be like, okay, Lang, let's talk. So, you don't work alone.
Right.
You don't. Who, how'd this come about, right? And that from there he can maybe trace things back to Rubinsky, which could still have dramatic.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think Rubinsky is too tiny and too small right now.
He is a cockroach.
To be getting any trails right now. But the idea that Rubinsky might be, well, building up his Lex Luthor kind of,
he's
empire
totally a
all
Lex
over
Luthor.
Again. And he's just like, I'm patient, I'm calculating, and I'm also very ambitious. So I have large sweeping dreams. And he can theoretically outlast maybe even Reinhardt.
He definitely, like, ever since he was introduced, he did give me that kind of vibe of like, okay, so they're introducing this guy now because he is going to be one of the true late game players. Like with the way he was pulling the strings on the Alliance and Empire.
Back then, I actually thought that the Church of Terra was the end game, and he was the he was the upstart. I thought he was gonna get ruined, like really early, and it was.
And he kind of did get ruined.
He kind of did actually,
but beaten, but not defeated. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay. A lot of stuff we had to discuss this episode.
Yeah.
Really, really great conversations here. We barely touched upon the Shunkov a little bit there, but we kind of did. But just, I love the idea of Shunkov.
It was really great.
Right, I just love the idea of Shunkov having that opportunity to maybe try out being a dad.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe he will listen to
Poplin.
I
will. I look at you now in a whole new light, dude. Like,
whole new light.
You have a level of respect for me that I did not think it was possible for you to have. I did not think of you very highly up till now.
Yeah, you were a fun character.
You were a fun character.
But not that deep.
You were basically a gag,
But now, oh man.
But damn,
you're
son.
a young man.
Yeah.
You're a young man. Poplin.
I'm actually going to, not laugh every time you open your mouth to say something, just instinctively, because I know it's going to be silly or a joke. You
might actually be.
I'm actually going to be like, wait, is he actually comes from the strangest of places.
So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below. For our Patreon, you can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.